Hi, welcome to our free cash flow and EPS analysis. EPS is earnings per share. Um, and again, we're trying to put a high and low limit on stock price for the year 2014. So the first thing we do is download some data from CompuStat. I'm already logged into the Words database. You'll click on CompuStat North America and then the fundamentals analysis, which is an annual analysis. It basically comes from the annual reports for each company. We're going to pull data from 1991 through 2013. This is January, and this is going to be the end of 2013. We're interested in the ticker symbol. We're going to sort or select by ticker symbol. My ticker symbol is McDonald's. You'll have your individual company assigned to you. No screening variables that we're interested in. We're interested in data items, so make sure that this box is checked. Pull out the ticker symbol just to make sure that you've downloaded the correct company. Keep on going down here. We don't need anything on the company identifying information, nothing on the company descriptors. We do need balance sheet ops item, which is the working capital, which they're in alphabetical order, so you just go down and find W cap and put a check. If you're curious as to what any of these variables are, you can always click the question box, and it's the balance sheet supplement, annual difference between total current assets minus total current liabilities on a company's balance sheet. So that gives you a detailed description of what the variable actually is. We need a couple of income statement items. What we're trying to do is estimate free cash flow. So the free cash flow equation is EBIT times 1 minus the tax rate. We're going to use a tax rate of 39% plus depreciation minus capex minus the change in working capital. In a more detailed analysis, you're going to do all the same steps in this one, but you would actually look up what the tax rate was for each company because we need to get an exact value. So General Electric a lot of times has a tax rate of maybe 1% or 0%, in which case they get to keep all their EBIT. Other companies may have higher tax rates or lower tax rates. Pretty much nobody pays the marginal tax rate of 39%, but just to keep it simple, we're going to use a tax rate of 39%. And if you wanted to, you can calculate what the individual tax rate is for every year by going into the CompuStat database and taking out the taxes. So there's a note here for what taxes are, and then taxes divided by net income is, or taxes divided by EBIT is your tax rate. All right, so on the income statement, we need the EBIT. First we need the depreciation, again going in order, and that's just the DP, and then we'll come down here and check on the EBIT, and the last thing we need is the sales data, which is sales turnover net. We need a cash flow statement. We need to get the capital expenditures off of it. So we'll come to cash flow, and then we'll check CapEx right here. No miscellaneous items and no supplemental data. And then we want an Excel format. And at that point, you just hit submit. I've already done it just to save some time. Your file finally comes up. You'll click on that to open it, and this is what comes out. So we want to enable our editing. We're going to highlight our top line here just to get things organized a little bit better. Our text is going to be black. The fill is going to be none. And then we're going to take the filter off. And then we want to save this. And I'm going to come out to my hard drive over here, or my jump drive. And my data is saved. Okay. A little more cleanup data, just to clean it up. We want things as organized as possible. We don't need this global identifier. We want the fiscal. We don't need the industry. I'll go ahead and delete that. We don't need necessarily the level of conversation, or sorry. Anyway, we don't need that one. The source, the data format, ticker symbol, obviously we do need. We do want to make sure we have a note here what the currency is, and that takes us into all the data that we're interested in. We'll go ahead and save again. You want to save periodically. Now, usually you want to keep your data, your raw data. You don't want to work on this sheet. A lot of times you'll even lock it out so that it's not editable. So I can go ahead and protect the sheet by locking the cells. And I don't need a password protection. What I want to have happen is I don't want to go in there and accidentally delete something or overwrite something or anything else that I don't want to do. We'll just create a new sheet. We want to create basically a copy of this guy, so it's just equal, and click on the data. Now I'm doing it this way so that if I ever download my new data, extended data, different company, whatever, I can just drop it onto the Word sheet, and at that point I've got all the information that I'm interested in. A little cleanup here, and then we're gonna just organize things a little bit better by double clicking. Notice where the cursor changes, double click, and that's just going to widen the column so that the header on it's fixed without a problem. And some of these get a little busy, so I can go ahead and wrap text, and then when I narrow them down, I'll get 2 lines as opposed to 1 line. Again, our goal is to make this sheet as comfortable as possible for us to do whatever we want to do on it. So these aren't requirements, they're just recommendations on how to kind of make things look a little bit more, a little simpler, a little more direct. Actually, I don't need this final line. Alright, I'm going to enter in my tax rate here, so it's, as I mentioned before, it's always going to be 39%. And now I want my free cash flow, and that's going to be equal to, and it's my EBIT, and I multiply that by the quantity of 1 minus the tax rate. I'm setting this up as a variable. I'm going to F4 that so that as I drag it down, it moves down with me. That, in other words, as I drag this equation down, the tax rate always stays the same. I'll slide over here just a little bit, make it a little more functional. I'm actually going to drag this guy down one too. I'm just going to move it down. And well, this year. And I did that because we also need to have the change in working capital. So change in working capital, delta WC, is going to equal the current working capital minus previous working capital. Alright, so I'm back to my free cash flow equation, and just take a look at it one more time. 1 minus TC, add depreciation in. So at that point, add my depreciation, and then I want to subtract. Again, look at the equation, my capex, and then subtract my change in working capital. So I'm subtracting my CapEx, and then I am subtracting my change in working capital. So this becomes my free cash flow. It's $540 million. So about $500 million. And then we can go ahead and drag this down. Alright, so this is telling us what's happening with free cash flow. There's some negative years of free cash flow and some significantly positive years. That's not a problem. Always what we call know your data. So in this case, the driver, we have a big increase in working capital on the balance sheet. And we have a pretty big capital expenditure that occurred. This is $2 billion. And those two things can, make a big difference on your working capital. Next thing we want to do is we're going to calculate our free cash flow as a percentage of sales. So now I have free cash flow, and I'm going to divide that by my sales turnover. And we're going to make that a percentage, and 1 decimal place is sufficient. And go ahead and drag that down. Okay, so next step, again, know your data, is to create a plot. So we want to first highlight this column, which is my free cash flow column. And I'm going to insert a line graph. So here's my data. Go under select data. I want to edit this one and just give it a label as free cash flow. So that's the first set of data that I'm interested in. I want to change this to my years. So we start in 1992 and move to 2013. So that looks a little bit better, and then I'm going to add another data series to it. And this is FCC, FCF as percent sales. And I'm going to go ahead and select my other series that I'm interested in. And then obviously this is not very helpful to have a straight line here, so I'm going to format my data series and put it on a secondary axis. And now let's move my chart to a new tab so we can get a better look at it. So the percentage is based on this axis, and the free cash flow is based on this axis. And we go from minus 2,000 up to 5,000. What you're doing is you're trying to look for a basic trend that's going on here. Do I have a lot of predictability in my free cash flow or not? As we're going to use this data to develop a model, and from the model we're going to create a forecast of what's going to happen in the future with free cash flow. Another thing we want to do here is calculate the percentage change. So that's going to be equal to the quantity of down one. This is equal to the quantity of current free cash flow minus past free cash flow divided by past free cash flow. Now add 1. Alright. So you can see as a percentage increase, decrease of cash flow over time, it's pretty loud. And loud being noisy. There's a lot of big changes, big flip-flops that are going on. And I'm doing each one of these things to try and decide which is the best data series to model what the future is. And in order to model the future, we want to pick a data series that's going to have a relatively low variance associated with it, a relatively consistent trend line to it that we can actually predict. All right, so that finishes this first video. You'll have your chart. You'll need to label it better than I have, obviously, a title, what's on this side, what's on this side, what the primary axis, horizontal axis is, etc., etc. But this should be included in your report. And our next step is to try and use some time series analysis to create a model that's going to predict free cash flow as we go off into the future. And I'll come back to that when we start the next video. Thank you.